Welcome, guys, to another Product Podcast tonight. Kind of running a little bit late on going live tonight, but we had a little technical difficulties going live tonight. But tonight, with all the coaching rumors and potential changes happening across the college football world, but entire athlete world, I wanted to take some time to talk about how these situations can impact athletes. All the way from mentally to emotionally, but also throughout their entire journey. It could also depict their journey of how it ends up. So, if you're an athlete in a program currently facing a coaching change or rumors of a potential one, you know, take tonight's podcast and hopefully you hear something that you could take back to it. So, we're going to break down to navigate the uncertainty and how you should respond to the right way and how to keep your head up through the whole process. But tonight's first segment is the coaching change I experienced when I was in college. Before we get into the broader topic, I wanted to bring something more personal to everything. So, and the main gist of this is I was at a small level school, but we went from a coach that was a higher prestige former D1 coach to a coach that was coming from a prestige D1 program, but has never been a head coach. So there was a lot of transition in that period. We went from a very relaxed locker room to a very structured locker room. That there's going to be those changes, but also you got to confront those changes as that previous locker room environment we weren't winning in. That new environment was slowly building up to a winning culture. And that's kudos to Coach McCorkle, Blaine McCorkle, who is currently at Northwestern State. He laid a phenomenal foundation at Belhaven. Went from the first season for barely winning one game to potentially in his last season making the first playoff berth ever in Belhaven history at the Division III level. So you see that adjustment. You see the players that bought into state, and what changes in expectation and culture or communication did I see? There was a lot, all the way from players that weren't bought in. They were, missing classes, doing et cetera, other things. When Coach McCorkle came in, he made sure that his position coaches were always attentive to making sure they were checking on their position players. And that meant by classroom check-ins and everything. If you weren't in the classroom, the whole team was running at the end of the day. So we all suffered for one player's consequences. So that change was good, but you got to adapt to it as well. So you can always keep that in mind. And how do you adapt to a new playing style, new coach style, or even new standards? They're all different, and it's all on your out. What do you want in your athletic journey is ultimately goal you should take away from it. Do you want to have winning success, or do you want to be part of a losing team that's relaxed and you're just there to have fun? I mean, a lot of players are there for that. I mean, I saw a lot of players step away when Coach McCorkle came in because he was not aligned with that previous culture. So and when you're going to that, how to adapt, always lean on your more senior veterans. I know when that coaching change happened, I started hanging out with a lot more senior of the players. He was a backup quarterback and then one of the starting offensive linemen. I hanged out with him a lot. They got me involved in church at a local church there, and also I went to dinner with him a lot. But it helped me see the culture that was kind of forming there and where we were heading, and it helped me also stay focused in the classroom, but also outside of the classroom. Because you know you have so much structure, but also the coach is not there when you go home at night or to hold your hand to make sure you don't go out at night, right? And the players are going to do that. It's not saying not to do that, but you got to be, structured. As my coach McCorkle used to say, a blazer never lets a blazer die, and that means physically, mentally, everything. Because once one bag egg rots, the whole team rots. So let's keep that in mind, guys. As you might be facing this kind of struggle and journey or uncertainty currently. And, I already talked about this, but some players who struggle with the changes, maybe because their position coach left, their role shifted, or they wasn't sure they fit the new system. But give it time, guys. I know the portal is coming up, and a lot of these coaching rumors and everything's coming about. But don't jump ship just yet. Fill out the new coaches staff. Wait to meet with them at least one time. Most coaches staff will be on campus before the end of this year. That's going to be hired, unless it's a late coaches switch. Which could potentially happen. The portal opens up January 2nd for majority of the NCAA level. But fill out that first group of coaches that's coming in. They might be better than you thought. You can't always read what's on Google about these guys, because a lot of these coaches are been through the same thing you've been through. They know what they're facing when they walk in the door. That a lot of players are like, "Who are you?" Ultimately, right? So give them a chance. But those who actually thrive and take advantage of a new fresh start, new opportunities, or a coach who value different skills sets are typically the ones that excel not only outside of the class, outside of the field house, but also in life because they know how to adapt and confront adversity. Because I could tell any player this, and I hate the portal the way it's became because it makes players easily to jump ship. But the reason this is becoming such a hard fought truth is what are you going to do in real life when a rock hits you in the head? Are you going to turn away and run away, or are you going to keep confronting that rock that keeps pushing you away from whatever goal you're trying to reach? So keep that in mind when a coaching change takes effect. It can come in different ways. A coach can resign, a coach can get fired, a coach could take a better job. Um, but what matters the most is how you respond, not just react to it. So take that away from this first segment. Is you want to respond in a good way, and a way to always respond is like the guys that help me is rely on the Lord because He'll guide your path right. Our Bible verse at the end of this podcast, I think, will hit home with that one. But always make sure you stay to your true process. Keep in mind, what do you ultimately want to be remembered for, and what do you want your journey to remember for? And potentially, your former coach, if he does leave, he could take you with him, right? But that's not always to say it's the right fit, right? You got to know, you got to analyze every situation. So let's keep that in mind, guys, and never shy away from any kind of opportunity. So, but as we transition to the next segment, and this leads into the bigger conversation because whether you're in the transfer portal era or not, coaching changes are part of college athletics. Period. So let's talk about how to actually handle them. So the first topic is when your coach is fired. First, you need to acknowledge that this is usually creates the most shock and instability with any players. Especially if you had a close connection with that coach. I granted did not have a close connection, and the coaches that I did have a close connection with, they ultimately stayed on staff. Um, and actually, one of those coaches that I had a close connection with is with Coach McCorkle now, coaching at Northwestern State. So you never know which coach is going to stay. You never know what's going to transpire out of it. So keep that in mind. Keep a fresh mindset. Keep a fresh outlook on things because you never know what could shape out of it. And now we're going to talk about what you as an athlete should do. And the number one thing I think is stay calm and avoid emotional decisions in the moment. Don't go to social media posting, "Oh, this is a bad decision," because the school made a decision for a reason, or the coach made a career decision. It sucks. Don't get me wrong, but he's got to make the career decision to either better his family or better his career. Everybody wants a career advancement, whether that's a coaching job or whether that's when you get in the real world and you're working as an accountant or something like that. You always want advancement. So, you can never shun down a coach for taking an advancement, and also lean on teammates and the support staff that your school has. Each school has a support staff. So rely on those counselors and stuff to talk to, or, talk about the struggles you're having because that'll be crucial. Lean on those teammates that, have been there since day one. And possibly the seniors have been through a previous coaching change, I mean, I think there was a few seniors on my team when Coach McCorkle came in that had been through a previous coaching change with the coach that I came into had replaced another coach. So, they've been through similar situations, learn from their mistakes, learn from what they advise you to do, and take advantage of that because that's some good lessons there to learn. But here's one of the things that I think a lot of players don't do. Typically, if it's a mid-season fire, there's going to be an interim coach that replaces him, right? Sit down with an interim coach, talk about your short-term plan, where you want this season to end up, and see what his response is. Because we all know the NCAA allows you to hit the portal within like 15 days, I think it is, after a coach is fired. But meet with him and see what his goals is of the season. His goals might be to finish the season strong and try to potentially make a playoff run or even if you're at the NCAA level, be bowl eligible, So keep that in mind. And another thing is, I know this is a stretch for a lot of players, and some ADs are not open to it, but it reach out to the athletic director, meet with him, try to get an idea of where he sees the direction of the program going, where he would like to see it going. That might transpire a lot of ideas in your brain to know what you could be prepared for. But also another crucial thing is no matter what happens, keep training preparation consistent because showing reliability matters during staff evaluations, even from staff members that you potentially might transfer to. Because if they see that you went downhill after a midseason fire, they're less likely to take you in the portal, right? So keep that in mind. And the second bullet I want to hit in this segment, we've kind of hit on already. But when your coach leaves for a bigger job, often this feels more personal, like betrayal, even though it's a business. You know, that was a big reason the transfer portal came about the way it is because they were like, if coaches can move freely, players should be able to do the same thing. So keep that in mind. But what athletes should remember crucial when a coach leaves for a bigger job, coaches typically move for family, opportunity, career growth, just like us players do now. Just like you athletes are hitting the portal nowadays to go to a Power 5 level. They're doing the same situation. But your job is to evaluate whether that new staff aligns with your goals. If they don't align with your goals and your goals are actually meetable and not goals that are just all about me, because there's a lot of players that they're only worried about themselves. That's why they're in the portal every year, right? And those players are slowly getting caught on by because why are you in the portal every year? So if you are that player that's hitting the portal every year, keep that in mind. Why am I hitting the portal? You got to have a reason behind it, and it can't be because it was a coach every time. My pastor just really recently said if you're leaving a job every time because I don't get along with the people, that is an issue within yourself, not an issue within the job or where you're working at. Find out what you are meant for and what you can give back to any kind of team. Yes, that locker room might be toxic, but you could be the shining star that transpires that whole entire locker room. So keep that in mind, guys, as we go through this. But a new coaching staff might offer a better opportunity than you expect. So don't rush to jump ship, just like I said a minute ago. And then this one happens often when your position coach leaves, because typically your position coach is the coach you're the closest one to. It's often harder than losing your head coach because your position coach you're with every day pretty much, right? During the season, especially. But what you can do, and I'm gonna hit these 3 bullets real quick, is introduce yourself to the new staff immediately. Sit down, ask him about his expectation, his philosophy, or his projected role within you. And control what you can. Your effort, attitude, and body language will say a lot to that new coach. But keep in mind that new coach has probably been in the same situation you have, and your position coach at left. Typically, he's going to better himself. He's going to become a coordinator or something in those lines. So you can't always badmouth him because potentially one day he could come knocking again and ask you to transfer where he is at now. So keep that in mind. Don't go bashing him on social media. Don't do all that stuff. Keep in mind and keep zero focused in on what you are trying to accomplish. Keep it in on the team you're with at the current moment. And I think this one hits home, right now. There's been a lot of, rumors going around of Lane Kiffin, Eli Drinkwitz at the highest levels, leaving their SEC school for another SEC school right now, right? And this is one of the hardest scenarios anyone can confront. And nothing is confirmed, but tensions everywhere, right? Ole Miss is on the cusp of a college football playoff. They haven't been in the national championship discussion in years, back since Eli Manning was there, I believe. So when these things happen, don't let social media dictate your emotions. Stay off of social media. Don't go to social media bashing. The coaches ruined the team or etc. Keeping in mind that coach is having to make a business decision just like you are. And sometimes that bad apple of a head coach that is known to do that. Not throwing names out there, but we all know which one I'm referring to. It it can sometimes click in a player's brain to remember, oh, he did this to this one team, he's going to do it again. But if you're in that scenario and there's multiple coaches out there like that, keep in mind, let's do it for the team. You have a brotherhood or a sisterhood that's created. Go do it for yourself and that team together, and go finish the mission that coach ultimately did. So let's say Lane Kiffin does leave Ole Miss before they make a playoff run. I hope that Ole Miss football team comes together, forms together, and finishes the mission that they came together for. I'm a Georgia fan, but it will make all the day to see Trinidad Chambers bring home a national championship trophy as a former D2 athlete. That is the most remarkable journey out there. So, if you're an Ole Miss football player and you somehow watch this, don't let all the social media, affect you. We all get wrapped up in it. So all you can do is stay focused on what you can control, avoid spreading or reacting to unverified info, which we all know there's unverified info floating everywhere. Unless ESPN, CBS Sports, On3, or one of those, post it, don't ever believe it, and prepare mentally for both outcomes, because you're officially going to have to. So, but my closing message to this podcast segment is, at the end of the day, coaching changes are part of the game, guys and women. They can shake your confidence or become the moment you grow the most. But what matters most is how you respond, how you carry yourself in those situations, and how you build your own foundation, no matter who's in charge. So keep that in mind, guys. I think that's crucial, because your own foundation will transpire into a lot of things in real life. So, but enough of the serious talk. We're going to get into just a little fun tonight, and I love doing this. As a Prowler podcast host, I launched this podcast, and had a lot of fun picking the games lately, and doing a lot of cool things, and having a lot of cool guests on, which we don't have a guest on this week, but we'll have another one lined up next week and see about their recruiting journey. But with all the power for coaching jobs currently open, I just want to give my pick of who I think these schools should pick. And my first one is LSU. I know LSU is currently, it might be foundational that Lane Kiffin is the next head coach there. I mean, he made a flight down Monday and had a tour of the city and the campus, and he took his family down. And there's been some word that Knox Kiffin from Oxford High School is possibly enrolling in U High in Baton Rouge. We don't know what's going to transpire out of that. I think LSU is not making a bad hire there, but we also know Lane Kiffin he's known to jump ship oftentimes, right, guys? And it's not always for the greener grass. But I think John Sumrall, the coach at Tulane currently, I think he would be a great fit for LSU. He's a great young-minded coach. He will bring physical and aggressive fronts to the LSU team. And he's built top 25 defenses at Tulane and Troy now. So, LSU's already got a great foundational defense. Go ahead and build off that more. And he also has strong SEC and Southern recruiting ties. And just like I said, he's known for building discipline and tough cultures, as proven at Tulane and Detroit. Heck, Tulane is currently sitting the number 12 seed in the playoffs right now. But he also matches LSU identity. LSU's always been known for that defensive dominance and swagger. So I think he will be a great fit for that program. And this is an interesting one. I personally think, Eli Drinkwitz has been rumored to Florida a lot. I just saw that John Sumrall's visit got canceled today to there, which sparked a lot of interest. Is Eli taking the job, or is it Lane? We don't know yet, guys, right? But I think Eli fits Penn State a lot because his innovative offensive mind who modernizes the system. I'm shocked that they moved on from James Franklin, but I also kind of get it, But I think Drinkwitz will be, a great fit because he's a strong Midwest, a Southeast recruiting guy. He's got a lot of connections in those areas. And he also would offer that spark Penn State needs on offense without losing physicality. But I think the number one thing to look at is, Missouri has not ever been really a top football school. They've been more known for their basketball, right? But he's been able to consistently recruit top 20 classes at Missouri, despite all his limitations. And Missouri is not a really big ground for big recruits. So keep that in mind. I think Eli Drinkwitz would be a great fit for them. My personal pick for Florida, Jeff Brom. Florida has been begging for a offensive-minded guy. And what perfect fit would this guy be? He's one of the best QB developers and play callers in college football. I mean, look at the guys he's developed over the past years. He's got a great one this year. Miller Moss from USC. A lot of people wrote him off, and he's got Louisville in the playoff discussion again. And he's produced high-powered offenses both at Purdue and Louisville. And like I said, he fits Florida's desire for that explosive offense. So what better fit, I think he would be a great fit for those guys. And one that hasn't been really talked about much is the Auburn head coaching job. Guys, I think Hugh Freeze had that team on the cusp of being some of the series because they have lost only one game by less than 7 points. I mean, that's a dang dangerous good resume. At the Arkansas and Auburn is two teams that are just right there on the cusp, I believe, to being a SEC contender, honestly, for the SEC. But if Auburn had to replace a coach, I think Kenny Dillingham would be a great fit. He was a former offensive coordinator underneath Gus Malzahn. I don't think many people realize that. So I think he's still got a lot of ties there. He's a high-energy recruiter with a lot of deep SEC ties, as I said. He built elite offenses at Oregon and Florida State, as we all know. And he has shown great leadership growth as the head coach at Arizona State. And he's found diamond in the roughs. Look at Cam Scattergood. Came out of Sacramento State. Not many people thought that guy would be what he was at Arizona State. And he almost took Arizona State to the dang national championship. That dude was on a mission. And I think it's kudos to, Kenny Dillingham. He's known for finding these guys that's kind of wrote off. In Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy was my guy. I loved watching him growing up. He's been there for years, but, he finally kind of hit a rut in the road. But I think a guy that kind of could replace him is a younger version of him is Colin Klein, former Kansas State quarterback. He was a Heisman finalist. He's got a lot of Big 12 roots. He's the perfect architect of physical and efficiency, which he did on the field and he's doing off the field now as a coach, and he offers that continuity for OSU's identity without a full reset to him, and I think that would be big. So, and Virginia Tech, this actually got finalized after I made my post about this, but James Franklin, I think this is a phenomenal hire by Virginia Tech. He's a top tier recruiter with dominance in the Mid-Atlantic region, which we've seen. He's a CEO style leader who brings instant credibility to Virginia Tech. Everybody's going to have their spotlight on Virginia Tech now in the ACC. I think it's a great hire for them. Arkansas, I know there was a lot of rumors that Arkansas was pursuing James Franklin hard, which I don't blame him, but I think there's a better fit out there for these guys, and I think it's Brent Key at Georgia Tech. It's going to be hard to persuade him out of Georgia Tech, I think, guys, but I think if they were able to, this would be a home run hit for anybody. But he rebuilt Georgia Tech. I mean, better than any ACC program right now. Them and Miami is probably going to face each other in ACC championship, but he's done this through physicality and trench development. The guys recreated Haynes King ultimately. A lot of people wrote Haynes King off after Texas A&M, but the man is back, and he's probably going to be in the Heisman front runner this year. He's a former Alabama assistant that brings a lot of O-line expertise, and I think Arkansas could really use that because Taylor Green has blown the charts away. I mean, their offense is blowing and going, but that offensive line has struggled the past 2 years significantly. And I think this would be a perfect pick for them because it provides Arkansas, I think, with long-term stability in a challenging SEC West environment because the SEC is just getting more competitive in that West division. And these last two don't get talked about much, and I think it's because of how low they've got the past few years. But Stanford, they used to be the top dogs when Andrew Luck was there, when Christian McCaffrey was there. They used to be. And I think Frank Wright, the current interim coach who coached Andrew Luck at the Colts, I think this is probably going to be the hire. I think it's automatic because he's not only a respected NFL mind, but he brings a strong QB development history with him, He's a player-centered leadership style, which fits Stanford's academic model. But he also brings maturity, structure, and high character leadership. So I think this will be the ideal match for this program that values intellect and discipline ultimately. And UCLA, UCLA they got an interesting situation. They haven't been really good in a long time. They went through Chip Kelly, this latest coach, which I didn't really understand his latest coach hire. But I think Spencer Danielson will be a perfect hire for them. He's a West Coast type of guy. He's, one of the young defensive minds on the West Coast. He's led Boise State to not only improve their toughness and defense identity, but he's keep their offensive pretty high power. So I think this is a perfect culture fit for the UCLA Bruins. That's closing up tonight. We don't have a podcast question because we don't have a guest tonight, but I want to hit this Bible verse tonight as my weekly quote. And I think this hits home with any player in the portal currently that's facing adversity because of a coaching change, or a player that's currently sitting there hearing all these rumors about their coach leaving. But the verse is Proverbs 3, verses 5 through 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. So just rely on that, guys, tonight. And I think that will carry you to the finish line for whatever kind of journey you're looking for in your collegiate career. And this is for all sports. I know we tailor it to football tonight, but every sport comes with coaching changes. So just remember that. But that's going to wrap up tonight's Prowler podcast, guys. Thank you for listening in to me, even though it was just me rambling tonight. But I hope you take something insightful out of it, not only from my crazy coaching takes possibly, but all the way to my, my experience at Belhaven through a coaching change. And all I can tell you is when I went to that coaching change, rely on those senior guys that have been there. They've possibly been through one before that, because those guys helped me realize what was the bigger picture in the end. So remember that, guys. But we're just going to start it, as always, with more stories, more insight, and more ways to help athletes like you reach that next level. But if you enjoyed tonight's episode, the recording version will be posted on all social media platforms. It'll also be on our YouTube and TikTok. So make sure to check us out, guys. Give us a follow, subscribe to us, and stay locked in with us as we continue to build this community. And if you're interested in being on the podcast, if you're a current athlete and want to share your recruiting story, shoot us a DM. We would love to have you on, guys. But as always, stay connected, stay driven, and keep chasing your dreams, because we cannot wait to see what's next. But as always, guys, Prowler up, and we'll see you next week.